This was post-pandemic, somewhere around December last year. I work in the business industry. Typically, I never have to use a private jet unless there's some emergency. This was one such time. There were some issues with one of our partners, and I had to fly abroad for a meeting that was going to be held the next day. It was decided that I, along with 2 team members from the PR department, and my secretary would be going. I only knew the senior manager from the PR teams and had no idea who else was accompanying her. I was told that she was one of the assistants who had been working under the manager for about the last 2 years. I finished my work early and reached the boarding point. There was only one woman there who must have been the assistant my secretary was talking about. I texted the other 2 and asked them where they were, and they told me that it would take around 15 minutes for them to arrive. That wasn't a problem at all. I changed into my comfortable casual trousers and loose white shirt as this was going to be an 8-hour-long ride. Moreover, the meeting was scheduled earlier the next day, so we would directly go to the hotel and catch up on some sleep after a quick review of the important points. I put on my mask and boarded the jet. However, after doing so, I realized the mess that was going down in the jet. The assistant was arguing with the pilot and ordering him around. I tapped lightly on her shoulder and asked what was happening. Her face was confused. I guess that since we had never met each other face to face and wearing a mask right now, perhaps she wasn't able to recognize me? Who are you? Are you the co-pilot? Or are you the flight attendant? I don't get why we are being so late. If everyone else is late, they can come later. Just take off the dang jet. I was bemused by what was happening. There was no context. Why was she ordering everyone? And why was she behaving as if it were her private jet? I wasn't even sure if she was the assistant, so just to make sure, I asked her who she was. Me? I am your boss. I am the vice president of the company. Did she think nobody knew if she chose a lower position than mine? The vice president was usually with me at such meetings, so the flight staff was well aware of who he was. He was already in Amsterdam for some business, and that was why she couldn't join me. If he had been there, the assistant wouldn't have been invited. She was only there to handle menial tasks because we were going to have a really busy day. No, you are not. Please sit down. We had already received a notification that you were going to join us today, the stewardess said. Karen smilingly suggested that she would fire anyone and everyone who denied her orders. I checked my watch. Only 3 minutes had passed. She tapped on my watch and rudely asked me why I was just standing and not bringing her any drink. Then she demanded the pilot take off the flight. The pilot and the stewardess kept glancing in each other's direction. She was going to be a problematic companion all through the trip, I thought. Kindly leave the jet. Your presence isn't needed anymore. We cannot entertain a troublesome person like you. We have enough issues to deal with on our own. We don't need more to add to it, I replied in a calm manner. Karen was irate. She grabbed my collar, yelled quite loudly, and declared that she was firing me. How dare you talk to me like that? You know what? I don't need your presence anymore. Get off my damn jet. And if you show up again, I will make your life hell. Get the hell out of here. I signaled the pilot and stewardess to let her do whatever she wanted to. They knew well what I was going to do. I walked out of the jet and called a family member. I asked her if I could use her private jet to fly abroad since mine was preoccupied. She called me back within minutes and said that it was available and I could use it in a few hours. I informed my secretary and the senior manager to meet me at a different location. I strictly ordered them not to inform the assistant. The pilot texted me after a few minutes that he had left the jet. The only person in the jet is Karen, who would have to sit there until the staff members asked her to get off since there were no pilots. Nobody informed Karen of anything. I asked the senior manager if she knew I was coming, and she told me that Karen probably had no idea. The details were sent to her on her email address, but she was known for hardly checking anything correctly. The only reason the senior manager even suggested Karen was because everyone was involved in a major project and Karen had the least to do. 3 days later, we returned. I was wearing my mask when I went to the office. I suddenly felt a sudden jolt. Karen was clutching my arms tightly. Before I could say anything, she screamed loudly and asked me what I was doing in the office. I remember very clearly that I had fired you. Do you know I missed my meeting because of your incompetency? What am I going to do now? What should I answer my superiors? The director would really be angry with me. I wasn't even informed of anything. I still don't know what had happened, and I waited for the flight to take off for hours. They had to forcefully remove me from the flight because of all that waiting. That just shows how stupid she is. What a bold yet moronic attitude, I thought. I asked her how I was responsible for her missing the flight. She jabbered about how the pilot walked away after I was gone without even notifying. He just left. I thought it was because he had some work or if he had to check the engine. I chuckled when she said the last sentence. She angrily glares at me, and then she told me that even the stewardess had the audacity to be rude to her. Well, you did fire me. It's your private jet, so you should be able to hire a new pilot and staff, right? And if you were actually paying them, how could they be so rude to you? It almost sounds like you forced yourself on that flight and created a nuisance for everyone. She said nothing for a minute. Her face screamed that she must be really anxious. Though she tried hard not to slip her inner worries into our conversation, but nothing could conceal the look she carried. I asked her if she was still the vice president of the company. That startled her. She bit her lips and annoyingly said, "Are you trying to doubt me in this situation? How dare you? Get out of this office. I don't want to see your face. Leave your resignation letter on that table there. Don't give it to anyone else." Exhausted from her one-way idiotic conversation, I took a long breath and went inside my office. I could hear her stammering, trying to say something. I knew she still didn't have the guts to step into my office. Maybe she was afraid I would complain about her since she was still unaware of my position in the company. Then I asked my secretary to send her the monthly bill, maintenance charges, staff wages, etc., with a note that was addressed to the owner saying she was required to pay the bill in full in the next 48 hours since she was the owner of the private jet. After half an hour or so, I hear a desperate knock on my door. I ask them to come in. It's Karen, no surprise there. Her hands were sweating profusely. Her eyes were teary. She looked anxious. Of course, she didn't recognize me because this time I was without my mask. I asked her what had happened, and she said that suddenly she received this huge amount of bill, and the secretary asked her to pay it in the next 48 hours. I have never even earned such an enormous amount of money at once. How should I pay for everything? And why should I pay? I'm just a mere assistant. I don't understand what's happening. I asked everyone, and they told me to talk to Miss Secretary. And then your secretary sent me here and told me that only you can resolve it, Mr. Director. I smiled and told her that she had to pay the full amount and there were no exceptions. She kept asking me if this was a joke since she wasn't responsible for paying anything. I asked her, "Are you sure? I asked you earlier if you were the VP and if you own the jet and answered both of them positively. I'm just giving you the respect you deserve and sending you the bill." She was dumbfounded. Obviously, she had no idea what I was talking about. Then I wore my mask again and asked her if it jogged her memory. Her face fell and she started babbling. She kept saying that she was just joking and playing a prank. She gave me the bill back and told me that she obviously knew who I was. "A prank, you say?" I said. "Well, that prank cost me thousands of dollars since I had to ask a close relative to lend me their private jet. Basically, I had to pay twice for fuel charges and everything. So, I am guessing that you are willing to compensate for it since it was your joke that actually caused that." She literally sat on the floor and started bawling her eyes out. It didn't have any effect on me because the way she was treating everyone was reason enough why she deserved every bit of it. I asked her to get out of my office. The next day, she pleaded with me again, and I told her that she was going to be demoted from her position and receive various training. She also had to attend seminars from time to time. If her performance was still not up to par, she would be fired. I also warned her that the news travels fast in our industry, so if she quit, there would always be a chance for the new bosses to check with the company about her overall performance, and the review wouldn't be very good. Since then, she has laid low. Her performance also has improved, and anytime she sees me, she flinches a bit and seems incredibly alarmed. Sometimes when I am wearing a mask, I walked up to her and ask her if she remembers me. She nods and fakes a smile, knowing that now she will never forget me. So, I started a new job about 2 years ago, and finally found a job I'm naturally good at, which has been amazing as my performance has been top notch, with no disciplinary actions and even a few rewards. So, I started helping out my fellow coworkers when they were struggling, and especially helping out the newbies who just got off training, which is garbage generic training for 3 weeks, which has literally nothing to do with our sector, and we're literally told to forget everything we learned because it does not apply to us. So, naturally, the newbies struggle a lot at the start, in which tanks the performance of the entire team. So, I wanted to be a good team player now that I finally felt like I knew what I was doing. Apparently, that was a mistake on my part. After 3 months of helping my team, I was called into a meeting with our coach to discuss my behavior. And I was told that I was not allowed to help my coworkers because I am not trained in that field, and only the higher-ups are supposed to answer questions and make decisions within our job. It would be fine and understandable if the coach was available for the entire 8-hour shift to answer questions and help people, which they are not. I pointed this out along with some statistics that since I started helping out answering questions, our performance has gone up each month, and it helps the newbies feel welcomed as they have a non-superior they can ask stupid questions to without worry. Another mistake on my part, our coach got really angry, and I was basically told that this is how it is, and if I'm caught giving unsanctioned help again, I will receive disciplinary action. Okay, fine. Have it your way then, you sad, pathetic excuse of a human. I screenshotted the conversation and dug up performance reports prior to my helping, during my helping, and for the next 3 months without me helping. And wow, shocker, we started tanking in our performance. How could that have happened? So the entire team got called into a big meeting with the higher-ups, our manager and coach, to discuss what the hell is going on and why we're doing so crap. I let everyone speak and say their piece, and at the end of the meeting, I just asked if I could have 5 minutes of one of the big chief's time, as I think I might have a solution to help improve our performance. And he was actually surprisingly interested, so he called me up after the meeting to hear me out, and I told him about the whole situation. Showed screenshots, performance results, the whole 9 yards. My dude was visibly shaken, and a bit lost for words to be honest, but said he really appreciated the input and would look into fixing this internally, and that was that. 3 days later, our coach resigned in search for greener pastures. Ha 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 ha. F you. TLDR. The coach couldn't let his ego go and didn't allow me to help our team because I wasn't trained to help. Our performance tanked and they got sacked within 3 days of me speaking up. Edit 1. I'll answer some of the most common questions asked. I did get offered the coach position, but I declined as I love my current position and flexibility. It's not a toxic environment, it was just a bad apple. I did not get a pay increase. As a school principal, one of my responsibilities is to solicit parents to join the Parent Advisory Council. In fact, it is written into law with specific regulations as to composition, frequency of meetings, etc. One of the requirements is that the meetings have to be held at a time convenient to parents. A decade or so ago, I was the principal of a small rural high school that was in a town that served as the hub for a larger area. Most parents of the school worked in town, but lived out in the countryside. Some as much as an hour away. Because of this, the only way to get parents to attend meetings was to hold them right after school at 4 p.m. Parents were either doing work themselves or could make arrangements to dip out a little early, attend the meeting, and get home at a decent time. Particularly in winter, this was important as it was pretty dark and snowy on the rural roads. Partway through the school year, the district hired a new superintendent who had oversight of the high schools. She had come from a large urban school district and didn't fully understand or appreciate how a rural school district worked. At our meeting with all the principals, she asked each of us for a summary report of school operations, including parent meetings. I dutifully submitted mine as requested and forgot about it. A few weeks later, I got a call from the superintendent. We chatted, got to know each other a little bit, and then got down to the real reason for the call. I see from your report that you hold your parent meetings at 4 p.m., she said. Yeah, it's the best time so that everyone gets a decent hour, I said. A lot of people up here have long drives home, myself included. She took this to mean I had scheduled the meetings around my personal convenience. Well, when I was a principal, I always held them at night so parents could attend. I think you need to start holding your meetings later. Well, I don't think the parents will attend. No, the meetings have to be open to all parents and held at a time convenient to them, she insisted. I think you should start at 7 p.m. to make sure all parents have the opportunity to come. Now, in a big city school, that works fine as most families live within a short drive. But my boss is the boss. Cue malicious compliance. Okay, no problem. Say, why don't you attend the next one to introduce yourself to the parents, I offered. She immediately agreed, and I sent the calendar invitation for a month hence at 7 p.m. My school was located around a 90-minute drive north of administration's office where the superintendent worked, and she herself lived about an hour's drive south of it. She was in for a long day. The day of the meeting rolled around, and the superintendent arrived at the school around 6:45 p.m. in anticipation of the meeting. She brought donuts and cookies, and I supplied coffee and water. I had set up the library with a big conference table and seating for 30. No one showed up. I suppressed the urge to say, "I told you so,"